The next thing we need to do is style the table. Right now it is in just the default format that a table is in this is Google Chrome. Um, we want it to look like this, and that's quite a big difference. So we need to look at how to make that happen. So we're going to look real quick at the HTML, which is always the place that you need to start before styling something. You need to know what you're styling. So we have the form, and think back to when we did the HTML. We took and put all of the items inside their own divs. So we have a div class called form item that each item in the form has. We have form column 1 and form column 2 for the parts of the form that we want to have in 2 columns. Let me show you that. This would be form column 1, this is form column 2. This is 1 and 2, and this section here is 1 and this section here is 2. So we're going to use that class in order to make those all line up the way we want. Okay, so as we talked about, you can have 2 classes on a div, and that's what's going on here. So here's last name. Here is email and phone. And then we have the text area for message. We have our checkboxes. They are in a field set with legend. Now, this form item has another class on it, and it's called, actually it has 2. It has form column 1, which we've already seen, and it also has a class checks. And so we're going to use that on the item that has the checkboxes. If we also had any radio buttons on this form, we would also be able to use that same class on them because it's basically set up to do either the checkboxes or the radio buttons. They're the same sort of formatting. Down here we have the select box, and it doesn't have to have another special style to it. All it has is the form column 2 because it's going to be over on the right. We also have the submit button that we had enclosed in a form item as well. And we're putting a class on there of my button so that we can style it. The rest of the page is taken up by the info section, which we did in an aside when we wrote the HTML. The info section just has 3 divs inside of it to have the different lines of the information that we have, so that we can style those independently and not have to worry about actual paragraph stylings on them. So that's where we're coming from on the HTML. The first thing we need to put some style on is the form itself. So let's go to our CSS and the form itself. I could just put form here, and it would do the same thing, but by putting the class white on there, if I happen to put a form someplace else on this site, I don't have to worry about what this styling does. Conversely, if I want to use the same sort of form styling someplace else, and I've made this be inside of class, then I need to fix that in some way. I'll either need to come in, if I had a form someplace else, and I would need to come in and say white, class white form, and then a comma, and class whatever class else I'm putting a form in and do that. So the styling on the form is it's going to be 100% wide. And float left. Background color on it is the blue color. I have some padding. Top, right, and left are 15% or pixels, and the bottom is 20 pixels. Let's just take a look again real quick. So there's a little bit more padding down here. The color of the type is going to be white, and the border radius, that would be the curves on the edges, is 10 pixels. So let's go ahead and apply that. And see what has happened. Okay, well, it certainly did go 100% wide. So that's what we told it to do. And we're going to have to make that come back over to where we want it. But for right now, this is what we've told it to do. So we need to style the form items, because each of the items on this form, as we just saw, are inside a class called form item. The form item itself has a margin at the bottom of 5 pixels. It floats left, and it too is 100% wide. Now we don't see too much difference because we have only selected those areas. We haven't done anything, or we've only targeted the areas. We haven't done anything to the form elements at all. So what the width of 100% here is doing is it's saying I want that whole form item to take up 100% of the space available to me in the box. We have two different columns though, so form column 1 is going to take up 49% of the form items section, and form column 2 is going to take up 49% of that section, but it doesn't have the margin right. Now we could have done this instead of with two classes. We could have done it with a last child, and so we could have set it up in a different way, but this is how I set it up this time around. I'm doing it with the two different classes on it instead of doing it trying to sort it out and have it be a last child, because not everyone is has two columns on it, and so I would have had to put some other class or container on these at any rate, and in this way I just styled both of them. Okay, so technically I could have put form column on each of these and then did form column last child as this definition here. But this works. Let's go ahead and save that and see if it did indeed work to some extent, and it did. We have not yet styled the input boxes, but the container that they're all in is now lining up in two columns where we asked it to. You're starting to be able to see some structure. So before we move on, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and we'll start a new one because we have a lot of talking to do about how to style those form elements.